This is Dem Boyz, a Dallas Cowboys podcast with Jose Ovalle and Shane Carter.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to Dem Boyz Podcast, the Dallas Cowboys fan podcast. I'm Joe, and in just a bit, we'll be joined by Shane Carter. He's our co-host. In this episode, we'll be recapping the Dallas Cowboys 2017 season. We'll talk about the ups, the downs. We'll reflect on what we thought about the rookies, the new class of Cowboys, some departures, and what we look forward to next year. All right, guys, and now we're joined by Shane Carter. He's the Dem Boyz Podcast co-host. How you doing, Shane?
Doing good, man. How you doing?
I'm pretty good. So we're going to talk about a couple things. First off, let's recap the season. The Cowboys did not make the playoffs. I'm pretty sure you were disappointed as I was on how it ended up. Give me some of your thoughts on what you thought about how the season went.
Well, coming off a year where they went 13-3 and had, without a doubt, the best rookie class of the year, we expected bigger things from the guys taking a step forward in year two. But unfortunately, it looks like this year's rookie class wasn't as ready. At least most of them weren't as ready to play as a lot of the other players were. This year we had Taco Charlton, Chidobe Awuzie, Jordan Lewis, and while some of them flashed most of the time, we didn't get the same sort of feel and excitement we got from last year with Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott, and Malik Collins. But a player that I was happy to see and who I thought actually did better the second half of the season was Jalen Smith. Now, he goes back to being a rookie last year, but this year was his true first year playing, coming off the ACL, MCL devastation he had his last year in Notre Dame. He actually ended up leading the team in tackles, which is remarkable. For one thing, he was able to come back from that injury. He played every game, and I think his first half of the season he had some growing pains. As the year went along, we saw more of the Jalen Smith that we hope to see in the future.
Yeah, when the season started, everybody was calling him out for, missing tackles and stuff, but, he really came on his own, and like you said, he led the team in tackles. What about the secondary players? I think Jordan Lewis and Xavier Woods stepped up really well as first-year players. What do you think?
Well, Xavier Woods, from recapping last year's draft class, he was a personal favorite of mine, especially considering I had a third-round grade on him. They got him at the sixth.
Yeah.
He actually did he was playing nickel corner. He played both safety positions, and he even played some special teams. And for the most part, he was there on turnovers. He was a pretty good tackler. And now it's hard to ask a rookie to do a lot, but I thought considering the amount of playing time that he did and everything that he did was asked of him, I thought he did a pretty good job. Jordan Lewis came in and was asked to fill the slot and the outside corner positions, and I thought he did pretty well, pretty admirably. And if you remember the Green Bay game, everyone remembers that touchdown pass that happened to Devontae Adams. People kind of forget the play before in which he deflected the ball away in the exact same play. And considering he's a rookie, you got to look forward to that too. Now, the one everyone's talking about the last 4 or 5 games of the season was Chidobe Awuzie, the cornerback from Colorado.
Yes,
he played. Yeah, everyone's in love with this guy at this point. I liked him kind of the draft. I'm kind of surprised that a guy who was considered a first-round cornerback, who was invited to the draft, made it all the way to the second round where the Cowboys picked. And he was definitely, at the end of the season, he was definitely worth the hype that Drew Pearson gave him when they called his name. But I was kind of disappointed because if he was that good, the fact that he missed so many games because of injury only shows really just raw potential. I would love to see him play, an entire 16-game schedule as I think everybody else would. But looking forward, the secondary looks better with a lot of young players and a lot of good young talented pieces.
I definitely agree with that. What do you think about Taco? And he ended the year with 3 sacks, 19 tackles, 11 QB pressures, and 1 forced fumble. How do you think he did for his first year?
Well, it's kind of disappointing considering he was a first-round draft pick, but I thought actually as the year went along, you could see every game he was doing more things better. He was getting better pressure. He was tackling. He was tackling the tackles a lot better. He was getting to the quarterback a lot more. As you said, he only had 3 sacks, which is kind of disappointing for a first-round defensive end. But we saw him actually put more pressure on the backfield, start using his athleticism, playing both left and right defensive end sometimes. We even saw him play the 3-tech, which kind of makes people think of him as like another David Irving. They have two of these guys who are 6'7", 260, 270. And just the thought of that, it gets Cowboys fans' mouths watering. Now, in our rookie ratings, you can check us out on our Facebook page, I gave him a B because I thought he didn't start to come in on his own. He didn't start to figure it out until after he got his first sack. Once he got his first sack, he wanted more, and that's when he started to figure out, okay, this is how I have to get to the quarterback in the NFL. I can't just bully guys with my long arms athleticism like I did in Michigan. I gotta do some finessing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and then I think he just didn't have a lot of opportunity either. I mean, DeMarcus Lawrence was killing it, for the whole year, and we really only used, or the Cowboys really only used Taco, I think on a lot of third downs, because he's a pass rusher, so he's not really going to stop the run. But anyways, what about our new favorite offensive player, Ryan Switzer? I think he liked one of our tweets you threw out there, didn't he?
He liked both my tweets. I tweeted from the page and from my own account, congratulating him that he made the All-Rookie team as a returner, and I thought that was well deserved considering not just his touchdown. Everyone remembers his touchdown run against Washington, touchdown return, but also the fact that he averaged, I think it was 25 yards, point something on kick returns.
Yep, 25 yards per kick return. That's really good.
Yeah, and on the punt returns, he was a risk taker. He was like a Brett Favre risk taker because even when someone was about 10 yards away, he wouldn't always fair catch it. He was sometimes more risky because you see a short white guy, and I don't mean to be that guy, but you don't expect him to be that fast. You expect him to be quick. The reality is that people want to compare him to Cole Beasley because they're both 5'8", 5'9", 180. But Ryan Switzer's got some mainline speed to him. He can go east-west and north-south. It's crazy to think that they didn't use him more on offense except on jet sweeps. And on the last game of the season against Philly, which was essentially a trash game, he caught every pass Dak threw to him, and we saw what he could be as a potential receiver, not just return, as a potential receiver going forward. He and Dak can have sort of rapport down. And, as we'll talk later on in the year, the wide receiver position is something they need to improve on, and they might have a nice little starting piece in split.
Yeah, I think it's a different type of weapon that the Cowboys never really had in the past couple of years. You can think of him as kind of like a gadget type player, but I mean, can you think of anyone similar to him that the Cowboys have had before? Because I can. I don't remember a speedy receiver that can do it all pretty much. They just didn't really. I guess they didn't really know how to use him.
Well, the Cowboys have always been X receiver is our number one guy. A Dez, a Terrell Owens, a Michael Irvin. They always have the number one guy, and everyone else is kind of a serviceable player. They never really had their own Tyreek Hill who can return, run, and receive, And they never had that player. And Switz, while it's only one season, it's only a couple of plays here and there, he showed some potential to do that. And I think the idea that they would have a player like that is exciting moving forward.
Yeah, it is exciting. It opens up the playbook a lot, especially since it can be kind of bland. They just keep doing the same things over and over again. But talking about playbooks, what's going on with the coaching staff, man? There's a lot of big changes going on.
Yeah, I think after that season ended, everyone expected the big names to be gone or be on the hot seat. The head coach, Jason Garrett, he's still there. The offensive coordinator, Scott Linehan, he's still there. Defensive coordinator, Rob Marinelli, he's still there. But there's rumors, and it would surprise me, that he's considering retirement.
Yeah, for now. I really hope that doesn't happen. I mean, this defense, came to play last year, and I really like where he took them. So it would be really sad to see him go.
Yeah, I actually kind of disagree because they have great talent. They have a lot of great players on this team. They have a lot of great depth. But, Rob Marinelli is famous for his Tampa 2 defense. And as analysts and coach and players and everyone is saying, his system doesn't really work anymore. Because, in today's NFL, you can't just play normal defense because so many quarterbacks, more than there were 15 years ago, are mobile. they're a true dual threat quarterbacks. Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Andrew Luck, Dak Prescott, Tyrod Taylor. Guys like that, guys that can move in and around, guys that don't need to be just a statuesque pocket passer, guys who can go east-west, use their legs. They didn't run a lot of spy. They don't run a lot of heavy blitzes. They usually just bring 4 and will play either man or zone depending on coverage. But you can't do that anymore because if you give Aaron Rodgers 15 yards of separation on receivers and there's no one over there, he'll run it and they'll get first down.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could see that. Now, if Marinelli would step down, who do you think is there someone on the staff right now that you would see take his place, or do you think the Cowboys would reach out to pick up some talent from somewhere else?
It's interesting that you talked about their own staff because the original plan was they wanted to give it to Matt Eberflus, but he's ended up going to Indianapolis to supposedly join Josh McDaniels once the Patriots are done in the playoffs. But if you're asking like who I would like as a DC,
yes,
I don't know if there's necessarily like a big name out there that I would just love to see, because if there's a big name out there, he probably has a job. The best coach that I think, and I think a lot of people are really considering it, is Jack Del Rio, the recently fired head coach from Oakland.
Okay.
I think that he's good at coaching young talent. A lot of the players the Cowboys have are young, talented defensive players, and so he would walk into a situation where he's got a couple of Pro Bowlers and Sean Lee and DeMarcus Lawrence, a couple of upstart players and Jalen Smith, W. Wuzier, Jordan Lewis, guys like that, and he could mold a new system out of that, get them away from the normal Tampa 2, the lame, predictable schemes that they run, and kind of mix it up a little bit. But as far as aside from that, I can't really think of anyone on the top of my head that teams are willing to let go of right now that could help them next year, or that's available right now.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, really, the only people that you could hire would be someone who got fired for doing poorly, or it was a position coach that wants a bigger job, because even some of the successful defensive coordinators out there, I mean, they're just going to get head coaching jobs.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at someone like a Dan Quinn or something like that, if they're good enough of a DC, they're either going to go and get a better job as a DC, or they're going to be a head coach. You're absolutely right about that. There's no way that they're going to be let go. There's no way the Cowboys can just grab them and say, hey, come be our new DC if they're getting paid more to be over there, or someone can offer them a head coaching position.
So what do you think about Dak Prescott? His second year wasn't as spectacular as his first. Would you say he regressed, or is it just that he did so well in his first year it was just impossible to repeat it?
If you want to say that he regressed, and while he didn't have as spectacular as a rookie season, it's not necessarily fair to say he regressed completely. They didn't have Tyler Smith for a couple games. They didn't have Ezekiel Elliott for all those games, and so Dak really had to find himself as a quarterback. And people want to talk about how he just did poorly, how he just wasn't the same guy. That's because you're comparing him to a year where he was spectacular, and this year he was good. He wasn't bad. And the way to prove that it will be his QBR. Did you know that at the end of the year he actually had the 4th highest QBR in the league?
Wow, that's pretty crazy.
Let me read you some names real quick. Matt Ryan, Ben Roethlisberger, Matt Stafford, Drew Brees, Russell Wilson, Phillip Rivers, Tyrod Taylor, Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins, Cam Newton, Derek Carr. You know what they all have in common?
What's that?
They all have a lower QBR than Dak Prescott did. People want to talk about his 13 interceptions and his fumbles. The thing about QBR is they take into account which turnovers were actually the quarterback's fault. How many times did Dak Prescott fumble the ball because someone missed a block and he got strip sacked? How many times did he throw an interception because Dez or someone missed a route or hit the receiver in the hand?
I was about to say there were a lot of drop passes or tip passes that turned into interceptions that were not his fault.
It was so aggravating to watch that. And Dak Prescott being the quarterback, he's going to get the blame. But the reality is that those turnovers, a bunch of them were not his fault. And the QBR reflects that. It takes into consideration all the plays that he has to do on his own, the plays he has to scrape with his legs. the plays that he has to improvise, the plays that he has to get. He has to throw open receiver. Oh, but Dez drops it. But Terrence Williams has it in his hands and it falls backwards. Jason Witten, who was in his security blanket, has been the Cowboys security blanket since 2003, dropped more passes this year than I've ever seen him drop. He's not the same guy. I would love to see Rico Gathers finally get a shot to play tight end. And moving forward, they need a receiver that Dak Prescott's comfortable throwing to, because it didn't really look like a lot of the year he's comfortable throwing to anybody. He's afraid someone's going to drop it. Someone's going to run the wrong route.
Yeah.
But really, if you think about all that, the only 3 quarterbacks that had better QBR than him were Wentz, Case Keenum, Tom Brady, and it would have been Deshaun Watson had he not been hurt. But because he only played a few games, I think he played 7. He didn't have enough games to qualify for the season-ending QBR.
Yeah, it'd be skewed a little bit. I mean, he kind of had a pretty good run.
Yeah, considering that, he went from 81.5 QBR last year, which is great, and this year's QBR went down to 66.5. That's not great, but it's not bad considering what he had to deal with. And the QBR is generous in that. And so I'm tired of seeing and hearing these Cowboys fans, these Cowboys haters get on the Dak Prescott when he wasn't the issue. It wasn't him. If anyone who watched the games, like I did, I watched every single snap of every single Cowboy game, and I could tell which interceptions were Dak's fault. He missed the receiver from time to time. I'm not saying he's completely blameless, but he should not be responsible for all the turnovers that they had on offense. And I think going forward next year, when we see a new offense, which I guarantee you we will, we'll see the Dak Prescott we saw last year.
So on that, saying it's not his fault, and I agree with you on that. Whose fault do you think it is? Do you think it was just the receivers not really helping him out? Was it, Zeke not being in the lineup, so defenses, played the pass a lot more? Was it Linehan calling bad plays? What do you think it was? Because it wasn't the same Cowboys team as. I mean, I know we didn't have Zeke. That's probably the biggest reason. But even with Zeke when he came back, it still wasn't the same. Like we had a lot of third and longs, and we weren't running the ball as much. Like, what do you think changed?
2 words for all of that. Hell yeah. All of that you just said is absolutely the play became predictable. There was a game. Everyone remembers the Atlanta game when Chaz Green filled in for Tyron Smith?
I try not to, but yes.
He remembers. We all remember. We all remember all that. It took them 3 games in the Zeke suspension to figure out how to use the running backs, because Rod Smith and Alfred Morris actually filled in pretty well for the time that they played. The receivers, I don't know how that many receivers dropped or tipped that many passes. I have no idea. Not just Dez, Terrence Williams, Cole Beasley, Jason Witten. It is mind-boggling to think that many players could drop that many passes. Because Dak does not throw Dak does not throw complicated routes. His best attribute coming out of Mississippi State, besides his dual threat ability, was his accuracy. He threw accurate passes. He threw low-risk, accurate passes. And somehow these low-risk, accurate passes on the plays where he doesn't need 15 yards, he's throwing a little 5-yard out, he's throwing a 2-yard slant. Somehow they're not catching them. Somehow they're getting tipped. And the coverage isn't even that good. But we're giving them these interceptions. We're giving them these defensive ends come off the edge.
Now
I'm not so sure that Dak is completely blameless, because that'd be absolutely ridiculous. Because we all saw a couple of times where he did overthrow Dez.
I was about to say, now playing devil's advocate, a lot of people said that the biggest reason was he was overthrowing a lot of receivers, and that's what caused the drops and the tiff passes.
He did overthrow receivers sometimes. In fact, Dez sometimes had to play defense on a bad throw and knock the ball from the cornerback. And so on that one, you would blame Dak for that pass. We didn't see Dak as comfortable as the season went along. It took him a while to get his groove back. One game we would see the superstar Dak. The next game we would see Dak under duress, Dak under pressure, Dak having to do it all. So I think a combination of all that doesn't help. Also, Sean Lee missed all those games. And when your defense is not clicking, your defense is allowing points, your defense can't tackle the running back, That puts the pressure on the offense. And the offense, I don't care what offense you have, they don't want pressure on them. They want consistency. And they look to the defense to keep it consistent for them.
Yeah, Sean Lee, I think if we would have made the playoffs, I mean, you could very well vote for him for MVP because it was night and day on how that defense played with him in and out of the lineup. All right, well, that will conclude the first episode of the Dem Boyz podcast of 2018. We're back. We're officially back. Shane, is there any closing thoughts you want to say before we wrap up this first episode? And then after that, I'll give a preview about next week.
Don't give up on Dak. Look forward to the future. Things can get better, but don't let this last year, cloud your judgment going forward.
All right, next week we're going to be doing a free agency extravaganza. We're going to do our picks and our wishes on who we want the Cowboys to sign and retain, because we do have a bunch of people that are going to be free agents, and hopefully we can keep some of them, or maybe we'll be okay with some of them leaving as well. But make sure to follow us on Twitter at Dem Boyz Podcast. Like us on Facebook at Dem Boyz Podcast. Shane, where can they find you?
They can find me on Twitter at Shane Carter TX, capital S, Shane, capital C, Carter, capital TX, at Twitter. They can find me on Facebook from the Dem Boyz Podcast Facebook page, and you can probably find my Tinder out there somewhere, I'm pretty sure.
Swipe right. You can find me on Twitter. I'm at Amorn Cup of Joe. Send us questions to hashtag AskShane or hashtag SubCup. And if you send us a question, we might put it on the show. But till next time, we'll see you guys later.
This is Dem Boyz, a Dallas Cowboys podcast with Jose Ovalle and Shane Carter.